Hello, this is Dr. Kelly Donohoe with at Dr. Kelly Donohoe as well as at Magnolia Psychological. And I'm here today to talk about something that I think is very, very valuable, which is 3 steps that you can make to ride the wave of emotion. So, whatever that emotion might be, whether it's anxiety, depression, anger, I want to say before we kind of dig in that it's completely normative, in fact, healthy to experience and express the full range of human emotions. All of them, right? So they're all there for a reason. They all have a purpose and they all have a voice. So for any of you who have ever done parts therapy, one thing that's really cool that you can do is take each of those parts of you and see what they have to say because they're all there for a reason. So sometimes we try to suppress or ignore or, pretend like one part of ourselves isn't that valid or shouldn't have it. Anger often for women and for men, sometimes sadness or other emotions like that. We can instead use a secondary emotion that helps us feel a little bit more comfortable. So we can talk about that more in depth another day. Today, I just want to say no matter what the emotion is, so pick for you, probably one of your most frequently used ones, there are ways, pretty simple and straightforward ways, that you can ride that wave of emotion. So we talk a lot in therapy and in psychology about emotions as waves, and I think that's an extremely helpful metaphor. And I want you to all become surfers and to be able to ride those waves and then get the great feeling that you can have after you've ridden a good wave. Not that I've ever surfed before. In fact, it's kind of scary to me and I want to try it someday. It's not the surfing that scares me as much as what might be in the water. So take that how you will, whatever that means about me. So I want us all to be emotion surfers together. And let's talk about that. So the 3 ways to be a great emotional surfer. First, you have to recognize that the wave is happening, right? Sometimes we're in it and there's really, nothing we feel like we can do and we're just going to ride it. Well, the first step is being able to recognize that. The second step is to know your firefighters. And I'm going to talk about what that means and who they are and how they operate. And the third thing that I want to talk about is to be able to push your personal edge. So those are the 3 things that you can do to get to be a better surfer at riding an emotional wave. So for the purposes of this video, we're going to talk about anxiety. Okay, so that's going to be our emotion. And I've got this and I've got this. And I'm going to talk and draw about what it is. So let's imagine first, right? We need to recognize the wave. Step 1. So here we go. We got a wave of emotion. And let's just hope for myself that I can draw a better wave. Woo! Yeah, it's a good looking wave. Okay. So here's the emotion, right? And we're having this emotion and today we're going to call it anxiety, okay? I'm going to write that. Anxiety. And why do we call it a wave? Well, I think because if you look at it, right? So it starts out and now let's be clear, sometimes they're baby waves, right? And sometimes holy poop tsunamis. Let's just imagine an average experience of an emotion. It starts out and then it does have a peak, right? And then it subsides. One thing that you always can know is that no matter how intense, whether it is a tsunami of an emotion, it will end. It always ends. So that's why becoming a surfer of emotions is key, because at some point we can always look back and sort of go, oh, that was a wave I was on. Or I got crushed by that wave. Would have been great if I could have surfed it out a little bit. So that's step 1, being able to recognize when you're having an emotion wave. How do you recognize that? Well, you're feeling intense, right? Your cortisol is high. You're having big reactions. That usually means that you are in the ocean tumbling amidst the waves. Okay, so being able to recognize it is first, and that can take a couple of weeks of just noting to yourself, okay, I'm in the wave, without without expecting yourself to be able to make any changes at that time. We have to have reasonable expectations of ourselves, and it doesn't help to add anxiety to anxiety, right? To feel like, oh my goodness, why can I not make this change? No. for a couple of weeks, simply recognizing that you're on the wave. And it is so hard to admit that to ourselves at the moment, right? If I'm in a really juicy argument or something where I'm feeling a big wave and I just don't want to let it go, right? I'm imagining actually in my bathroom and having an argument with my husband about something that I realize at some point this is a wave I'm riding, and in a little bit I'm going to feel like, shouldn't have done that. Being able to just recognize that in the moment. Step one. Okay, step two, and this is where it gets really juicy, and I really love this idea. Here's our wave. We're on our wave, right? We start up the wave, and somewhere on this wave, we hit our personal edge. Can't take it anymore. In that moment, and I want you to stop and imagine this, pause the video if you have to, but I need you to imagine last time you've experienced this, where you felt like the emotion was so big, it might never end, that it was going to crush you. And you did whatever you did to have to get out, right? So you get to your personal edge. Let's say it's right here. That's a pretty impressive personal edge. So first, sometimes it's down here, sometimes it's up here, right? It changes all the time, right? Let's just say this one time it's like this. Come to your personal edge, can't, done, can't take it anymore. This is when we engage our coping skills. We got to put it out, no more. Another way that we can refer to coping skills is what many people, many therapists call firefighters. If you don't know what dialectical behavior therapy, DBT, is, or who Marsha Linehan is, please look her up. I also had a wonderful, wonderful supervisor named Lisa Maccarelli, who is incredible, talks about firefighters a lot. So you can take coping skill and think of it as a firefighter. Now, aside from firefighters being firefighters, and you might have whatever ideas you do about them, what do? They put out the fire, right? No more fire. Done. Okay. Also, they often leave kind of a giant mess, right? So sometimes they knock down the door, or they get everything wet, or they use foam if it's a certain kind of fire, like electricity or chemical fire, right? Then you have to clean up that mess. So you've used your coping skill, right? Which I've been calling firefighters, and you put out your fire. Now, in the way I think about things, coping skills are basically different ways that we handle things. Coping skills all the way from intense drug use to biting nails to, emotional eating, right? Or not eating at all. But all those things, all of the things are on a spectrum that, as a therapist, I call coping skills. And honestly, I don't judge them much differently because some work and some don't. And that's what we need to be thinking about, right? Remove some of the heat from it. And if you think of your coping skills, some of them make a bigger mess than others that you have to deal with the next day. So that's something to think about. So step two, know your firefighters, right? Know your firefighters. Know what your coping skills are. Sometimes I bring up someone's coping skill to them in therapy and they look at me and go, oh my goodness, I did not even notice I was doing that. And then I have to fix it the next day, right? A lot of times, for instance, someone will make you mad and you delete them all off of Instagram and then you have to refollow them. Well, that was you using a coping skill, a firefighter engaged, right? Put out the fire. And then you have to clean up that mess. So know your firefighters. Make a list. Think about it. Think about how you react in intense situations where you're riding that emotional wave. Know them, recognize them, and then decide if they are working for you or not. What makes a coping skill healthy or unhealthy? Does it make your life better or worse? It's that simple, right? We can remove all of the gunk we put around different coping skills. That's really what it is. Does it make your life better or worse? Okay, number two, know your firefighters. Now, let's move on to number three. Can you push your personal edge a little bit? Okay. What does that mean? That instead of engaging your coping skills here, because this is my natural kind of ability today, that you can just push that edge. I don't care if it's almost like negligible, like you can almost not tell. How far can you push that edge? Okay. Yellow zone. If you don't know what I'm talking about, I made a video called Comfort Zones. Please watch it and it probably makes sense without delving into deep, right? Green, yellow, red. which we use here in the United States and a couple of other places around the world, but not everywhere. Green means go, yellow means caution, red means stop. Do not pass into the red zone. Stay as far to the edge of the yellow zone as you can to push your personal edge a tiny bit further each time, right? One way to think about this in yoga, when you're really uncomfortable, probably doing almost anything physical, when you're really uncomfortable, you just want to stop, but you know that when most instructors give you a little clue that it's almost over, they either count or they say something like deep inhale, and you know, I could just keep going through this inhale and exhale, and then I'm done. That's what I'm asking you to do. Push through just a tiny bit more. I'm not asking you to go in the red zone, but pushing through to that tiny bit more every time builds your tolerance to the place where you can surf the waves. That's what I dream for you, that you surf the wave without engaging firefighters who might leave a giant mess that you then have to clean up. Questions, concern, comments, questions, whatever, email or text, reach out on Instagram. I'm here for you, and I'm wishing you great times and ability to ride the waves.